All right, let's get right into it. There's this pattern that just keeps repeating throughout history. It starts with a world-changing idea, which then sparks this incredible, wild excitement. Billions of dollars in investment pour in, and then it usually slams into a pretty painful reality check. It's a cycle, and believe me, it is happening again right now.
It often kicks off with a single, kind of shocking admission. This one's from the CEO of OpenAI, the company right at the epicenter of the whole AI boom. He actually said, "We are currently losing money on OpenAI Pro subscriptions. People use it much more than we expected." Just let that sink in for a second. Even when you're paying them $20 a month, the more you use their amazing product, the more cash they burn through.
If that whole idea, burning through mountains of cash to chase a world-changing vision, gives you a little bit of déjà vu, well, you're not wrong. We have definitely seen this movie before.
And every single time, the story starts in the exact same place. It begins with what we call a seductive promise, a revolutionary idea that just feels like it could change absolutely everything.
This is the core of it right here, the seductive promise. It's an idea so powerful, so compelling, that all the normal rules of business, of logic, they just kind of seem to melt away. The future feels like it has no ceiling.
And this spark, it can pop up anywhere. You see it in 1994, when Jeff Bezos sees one single statistic about internet growth and just quits his high-paying Wall Street job. Or in 2003, when a 19-year-old college dropout says she can reinvent all of modern medicine with just one drop of your blood. And just like that, the promise is born.
This quote from Bezos just reveals the sheer scale of the ambition. See, he didn't just want to sell books. For him, books were the perfect entry point, the first dose of a grand plan to build the everything store. The first idea, it was just a vehicle for something way, way bigger. So once that seductive promise really takes hold of our imagination, we move into phase 2. This is the part where rational optimism gets completely hijacked by a full-blown euphoric investing frenzy. This, my friends, is the mania.
$90 a share. That was the peak stock price for Enron back in 2000. At the time, they were being called America's most innovative company for 6 years straight. They seemed absolutely unstoppable. Or how about this number? $9 billion. That was the peak valuation of Theranos. And remember, this was a company whose main technology never actually worked. It just goes to show you how intoxicating a really good story can be.
During a mania, the entire language of business completely changes. All of a sudden, making a profit is, it's kind of old-fashioned. Investors get obsessed with these new buzzwords. What's your burn rate? Do you have first-mover advantage? How fast can you scale? Actually, making money? That can wait.
This just perfectly captures the ridiculous mood of the dot-com bubble. The idea didn't even have to make sense. As long as you had .com in your name and a founder who could talk about disruption, investors would literally just throw money at you.
But here's the thing about a mania. It can't last forever. Eventually, the party gets a little too loud, the music starts to fade, and someone in the corner starts asking some, uncomfortable questions. This is that turning point, right when the first little doubts begin to creep in. And this is where the gap between what people think is happening and what's really happening becomes a giant chasm. On the outside, Enron was this titan of innovation. But on the inside, they were using these shady accounting tricks to book profits from deals that might not actually make any money for decades. They were literally selling a fantasy.
And even as these cracks start to show, the true believers, they just hold on tighter. You have a former Secretary of State, a guy on the board of Theranos, who is just completely captivated by the vision. The story becomes so powerful that it just overrides all the warning signs. But then, on the flip side, you get a bone-chilling warning just like this one. This is from an Enron vice president writing a memo straight to the CEO, months before the whole thing collapsed. Someone on the inside knows. They know the entire thing is a house of cards, and the tension is just building and building. And all that tension, it inevitably leads to this, the Great Reckoning. This is that dramatic, brutal, unavoidable collision between the hype and the reality. This is when the bubble bursts. The numbers here are just staggering. The NASDAQ, which is full of tech stocks, lost 78% of its value in about 2 years. We are talking about trillions of dollars of wealth that just vanished. This wasn't a dip, it was a total wipeout. And just look at the sheer speed of this collapse. In August, Enron is still this corporate giant. By December, it's totally bankrupt.
It took less than 4 months for that whole illusion to completely shatter. It just shows you how fragile these hype-fueled companies really are.
And you have to remember, during the reckoning, everybody gets crushed. Even the companies that end up winning in the long run. Amazon stock plunged 95%. The headlines were calling it Amazon bomb. To just about everyone, it looked like just another dot-com failure.
So after the crash, after all the bankruptcies and the screaming headlines, what's actually left? Well, this final act is where we find the real lessons, the survivors, and maybe the most surprising part, the hidden legacy of the bubble.
So what separates the companies that make it from the ones that disappear? Well, this table lays it out perfectly. The survivors, the Amazons of the world, they had a real business model. They were obsessed with execution, not just hype. You know, Pets.com famously spent a fortune on Super Bowl ads while selling dog food for less than it cost them. Meanwhile, Amazon was just quietly building warehouses. That's the difference.
But here is the most fascinating part of this whole cycle. Even the bubbles that burst leave something incredibly valuable behind. The dot-com bust, for example, left behind billions of dollars worth of fiber optic cables and these huge data centers that nobody wanted. All that overinvestment became the cheap, essential infrastructure that the next wave of companies, think Facebook, think YouTube, were built on top of.
Which, of course, brings us right back to today. The AI hype cycle is in full swing. And just look at this number. Industry forecasts are projecting that building out the infrastructure just for AI is going to take almost $7 trillion by 2030. The scale of this is almost impossible to wrap your head around.
So there you have it. We've walked through the whole playbook. The seductive promise, the mania, the great reckoning, and the aftermath. You've seen how this story plays out time and time again. So with this massive AI revolution happening all around us, the only real question left is, what happens next?